I was sitting in a beige bank office, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead, as a young man in a blazer slid a document across the desk toward me. Foreclosure notice. Not for my home, but for a business loan I'd co-signed 6 months earlier. A business I hadn't set foot in since my wife left me. A business I never believed in to begin with. Mr. Delaney, unfortunately, the co-signer is still financially liable, the banker said, trying to sound apologetic. I nodded, calm. I wasn't surprised. This was just confirmation of what I already knew. Please comment below where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Marissa had been gone for 6 months. She left 2 weeks after the funds hit the account. No fight. No real explanation. Just one of those coffee table breakups. I need to rediscover who I am, she said. It's not you, it's me. I've outgrown this phase of my life. She'd packed a single suitcase, told me she was staying with friends for a few weeks, and walked out. Later, I found out she wasn't with friends. She was living with a yoga instructor named Ethan. They were renting a bungalow on the north side of town. She posted smiling photos from wellness retreats and chakra realignment seminars. My calls went unanswered. My texts were left unread. And now here I was, cleaning up the mess. I scanned the foreclosure packet, late payments, breach of contract, personal assets on the hook, all neatly printed in bold. Marissa hadn't made a single payment, not one. She'd cashed out the loan, hosted a few glitzy opening events at her healing center, and then funneled the income somewhere else, probably into Ethan's protein powder business, for all I knew. But I didn't curse, didn't slam the table, didn't even sigh. I just folded the paper, slid it back into the envelope, and stood up. Thank you for your time, I said to the banker. He blinked, surprised. I guess he expected more of a reaction. Most people get angry when they realize someone they loved turned them into a financial target. I didn't. I've spent my whole life building systems, automations, controls, audit trails. I've always known people can't be trusted. That's why I build frameworks that survive betrayal. Marissa forgot that. She thought she could outmaneuver me, use my name, my credit, and my silence. But I wasn't angry because I already had what I needed. Paper trails, system access, backups she didn't know existed. I'd spent 20 years building software to trace misuse and expose fraud. She robbed the wrong man. As I stepped outside, the cold January air met me like an old friend. I walked calmly to my car. No music, no calls, just the quiet hum of thought. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about the money. It was about principle, about respect, and about clarity. I drove across town, pulled into my garage, and opened the filing cabinet I'd marked Marissa Business. I hadn't opened it in months, but everything was there. Emails, invoices, the original loan paperwork, the system logs from her accounting software. She thought she was clever. She forgot who built the system she used to rob me. And now I was going to take it all back. Before all this, I was just a systems guy, quiet, methodical, the kind of person who double-checks his own password manager out of habit. I've spent the last 17 years designing accounting frameworks for mid-sized logistics firms. Not glamorous work, but solid, profitable. I made my living ensuring other people didn't lose track of their money. Irony has a sense of humor. I met Marissa 5 years ago during a short-term consulting contract with a startup wellness brand. She was running their community outreach program, bright-eyed and endlessly expressive, all flowing scarves and talk about chakras and alignment. I was there to solve a back-end integration issue between their client billing and payroll systems. She brought me herbal tea I never asked for and talked to me like I was a misunderstood artist instead of a back-end coder. She was unlike anyone I'd ever dated. I grew up around practical people, engineers, planners, problem solvers. Marissa lived in the realm of energy fields and intuition. She didn't just light up a room. She set fire to your expectations and dared you to follow her into the smoke. I was pulled in. We got married after 8 months. Fast, too fast, but it felt like gravity at the time. I made good money, and she had vision. She wanted to open her own holistic therapy center. Not just massage and crystals, a full healing experience. She said, I didn't fully understand it, but I believed in her, so I funded it. First came the certifications, courses on breathwork, energy mapping, somatic therapy. Then came branding, logos, websites, a custom app that let clients book alignment sessions. I paid the lease deposit on the studio space she fell in love with, 3 rooms in a converted Victorian near the park. All told, I put close to $80,000 into the venture before it even opened. Every time I brought up a spreadsheet or asked about projected revenue, she'd wave it off. "That's your world, babe. I just know this will work." 6 months before she left, she came to me with a plan. Expansion. She wanted to add group sessions, hire a second therapist, buy top-tier equipment. She'd found a loan option through a small business lending group, a $250,000 line with favorable terms if she had a co-signer. "I don't need your money," she said. "Just your name." And I gave it to her. Of course I did, because I trusted her. But trust doesn't mean blindness. Maybe it was habit, or maybe it was instinct honed from years of catching internal theft and backdoor billing manipulations. But when I helped set up her invoicing system, I added one more layer, an audit tracker. Lightweight, invisible, unnoticeable unless you knew it was there. Marissa didn't. It logged every change to her books, every invoice, every vendor, every login. I never expected to use it. I didn't even tell her it existed. Until the day the foreclosure notice landed in my lap, and I realized the woman who once made me feel seen had used my name to build something I wasn't even part of anymore. And suddenly, that little invisible log. It wasn't just a failsafe. It was my map back to the truth. 2 weeks after she walked out, the first envelope arrived. A crisp white letter from the lender, not addressed to Marissa Healing Arts, not even to Mrs. Delaney. No, this one had my name on it, full legal, in bold. "Derek Allen Delaney, your payment is past due." I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee gone cold and read it 3 times. Not once had she mentioned missing a payment. Not once had she hinted that the business wasn't solvent. In fact, if you went by her Instagram, which I still hadn't unfollowed, everything was perfect. Sun-kissed group photos from her divine self retreat in Tulum, testimonial reels from bronzed influencers talking about next-level transformation, even a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking by a rooftop pool. Caption: "The energy exchange is real." Apparently, the financial exchange wasn't. I logged into the back end of the accounting system she hadn't touched since the week she walked out. The audit tracker, a tool so lightweight she'd never known it existed, had been quietly recording everything, and what it revealed made my stomach turn. There hadn't been a single payment toward the loan since it was issued. Not one. The business account still showed deposits coming in from clients, some small, some sizable, but that money wasn't staying put. It was being immediately transferred out. But not to Marissa's account. To someone named Landon R., I did a little digging. Landon Reyes, a conscious embodiment coach based out of Santa Barbara. The man currently pictured on her Instagram stories, arms around her on a rented catamaran. She hadn't just left me. She'd brought someone else into the business. I cross-referenced the audit log with the business bank records. Over the past 6 weeks, Marissa had rerouted payment links on the booking site so that high-ticket clients were directed to a personal PayPal account, not the business account. We'd registered with the IRS. The account was under Landon Reyes. It wasn't just unethical, it was wire fraud. Client invoices, altered. Vendor payments, falsified. Internal documentation, backdated to make the books look clean. All of it sloppy, all of it recorded. Every edit, every login, every redirect. If you understood what you were looking at, it was a breadcrumb trail straight to jail time. I didn't call her, didn't text. I deleted her contact the night she left. Instead, I opened a secure folder, compiled the data, and exported screenshots with timestamps. Then I wrote a short email to my attorney, Carolyn Bishop. Subject line, Phase 1, no emotion, no explanation, just the facts. 10 minutes later, her reply came. Understood. Let's begin. That was the moment I realized I wasn't helpless. She thought I was a forgettable detail in her story, a gullible ex-husband who funded the dream, signed the loan, and faded into silence. What she'd forgotten was that I build systems for a living, and she had just walked into one without reading the fine print. By the end of the week, the folder Carolyn and I had started was already 3 inches thick. Emails, logs, screenshots, loan agreements, all neat, all indexed, all damning. But building a case wasn't enough. I wanted it airtight, so I made one more call to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. His name was Victor Leary, former IRS field agent turned compliance consultant. We'd met 3 years earlier when I built out a tax-integrated API system for a federal contractor. Victor had been the project lead on the regulatory side. Back then, he'd said something I never forgot. Systems don't lie. People do. He picked up on the second ring. "Derek Delaney," he said. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again, unless the feds finally decided to buy your platform. I need a favor." By Monday, we were in a rented conference room with a projector and 2 laptops. Victor's hands moved quickly, methodically, eyes squinting as he scanned the audit trails. "She didn't just make mistakes," he said. "She weaponized the system. That's intent." He pointed to one line of code she never even saw, an internal variable timestamp showing the exact moment she edited an invoice amount after the client had paid. Fraud. Straightforward. Victor leaned back, cracked his knuckles, and said, "I'll put it in language the SBA and the bank's compliance team can't ignore." Meanwhile, Marissa was prepping for her biggest event of the year. A wellness investor retreat in Sedona. The pitch was simple: high-yield return through franchised healing centers. She'd even secured a venue, sent out influencer packages, and promised profit sharing through a new LLC. All of it built on the same broken foundation. She needed this retreat to land, badly, because the business loan was coming due. Her PayPal laundering scheme had dried up, and she hadn't made a single legitimate repayment. Victor filed a 1031-C irregular income complaint with the Small Business Administration. Carolyn sent a demand letter to the bank's fraud unit, and I submitted a formal digital affidavit through the bank's internal system, flagging a breach of loan terms under Clause 17B. Unauthorized use of funds and falsification of profit-loss statements. By Wednesday morning, the account was frozen. Not drained, not closed, just locked. Temporarily, they said. Temporarily was enough. Because temporarily meant the venue's deposit bounced, which meant the contract was voided, which meant the retreat was off. I didn't hear it from Marissa. I heard it from one of the investors who'd reached out after seeing my name on the original loan documents. Someone who'd Googled me after a friend warned him about a fishy pitch. I told him I wasn't involved anymore, that I couldn't comment. But I could hear the nervousness in his voice. "I just don't want to be part of something unstable." "You're not," I said. "You caught it in time." Marissa posted an Instagram story that night, white text over a black screen. "Due to unforeseen technical challenges, the Divine Exchange retreat has been postponed. Refunds will be processed shortly." The comments started immediately. "What happened? Already booked travel? Are you serious? Girl, this is not okay." She turned off comments a few hours later. I wasn't even in town to see it. I was in Seattle, meeting with a friend at a fintech startup, exploring new contracts, laying new bricks. I didn't want her ruined. I wanted clarity. And she'd given it to me, by showing exactly how far she was willing to go when she thought I was out of the picture. She wasn't dealing with an ex-husband anymore. She was dealing with the architect of the system, and I was just getting started. It unraveled faster than I expected. Marissa's boyfriend, his name was Trent apparently, was arrested at a downtown Chase branch the following Monday. He'd attempted to deposit $40,000 in checks into a personal account that wasn't listed on any business filings. The bank flagged it. Standard procedure when something smells off and the amounts are too large to slip through quietly. What made it worse for him? One of the checks came from an investor tied to the Sedona retreat. When the bank called the investor to confirm the transaction, the man said he thought it was going into the business escrow account. It wasn't. Within hours, the IRS had opened a formal inquiry. Funds had been funneled from a business loan account into an undeclared personal account. That wasn't just bad accounting, that was tax fraud. And because I had already triggered an audit trail showing how Marissa edited invoices and falsified expense entries, the agents had a clear path to connect the dots. They didn't call me. They didn't need to. I had already handed them a turnkey case file, wrapped with documentation and time-stamped proof. But Marissa, she called, twice. I didn't answer. The third time she left a voicemail. It started calm, almost formal. "Derek, I heard from a bank investigator. They're saying some things that listen, I just want to understand what's going on here." She didn't mention Trent, didn't apologize, just circled around the edges. When I didn't respond, she tried again the next day. This time her tone was clipped and sharp. "I don't know what you're doing, but you need to stop. You're making this worse than it has to be. The retreat's canceled. I get it. But this is vindictive." I listened to the message once, deleted it. Later that evening, she tried one more time. Different voice altogether. Quieter. Cracked. "Derek, please. I didn't know the system had audit tracking. I didn't think you'd contest the loan. I didn't think you'd... I was overwhelmed. Please, if we could talk, maybe there's still a way out of this." I sent one message in reply, through my lawyer. "You signed for it. Own it." The next day, Carolyn drafted and sent a formal settlement demand. Marissa could either cooperate, sign away all business assets, surrender any claim to joint property, and submit an affidavit confirming fraudulent activity, or face full prosecution. No gray zones, no bargaining, just a clear decision, fold or burn. I never saw her face in person, but I saw the ripple effects. First, the investors pulled out, every single one. Then the Sedona venue posted a cancellation notice on their website, citing breach of contract. Her Instagram went dark, comments disabled. Her assistant quit, publicly, posting on her own account that she'd been misled and regretted trusting a brand built on manipulation. Then came the local news. A wellness center under investigation. Questions about misuse of business funds. A partner arrested. A founder facing civil and potential criminal charges. No names were printed, but people could read between the lines. Carolyn texted me when the article went live. She's radioactive now. Even if she wanted to rebuild, no one's investing in her again. I was in the middle of chopping vegetables when I read it. Stir-fry night. Nothing fancy. Just mine. I didn't go online to watch the fallout. Didn't scroll through the hashtags or dig for her burner accounts. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't about watching her lose. It was about no longer letting her win by default. For 4 years, I'd co-signed everything. Her studio, her retreats, her story. Now the narrative was no longer hers to tell. It belonged to the facts, and they spoke louder than anything I could have said. Marissa folded faster than I expected. Her attorney, a junior partner from a boutique firm downtown, called Carolyn 3 days after receiving our settlement demand. His tone was shaky. Professional, but shaky. "We'd like to avoid a courtroom if possible," he said. Carolyn kept her response measured. "That will depend entirely on your client's willingness to accept full responsibility." By the end of that week, Marissa signed over full ownership of the wellness studio and its assets. Every cushion, every diffuser, every digital file with her logo on it now belonged to me. Or more accurately, to the legal entity I created overnight to receive them. Echelon Recovery Holdings LLC. No public ties to my name, just a simple transaction on paper. I sold it 2 weeks later. A boutique spa chain in Boulder, one I'd advised years ago, picked it up for pennies on the dollar. They weren't interested in the brand. They just wanted the location, some furniture, and her mailing list. The final sale price was just over $190,000, enough to wipe out the loan, cover all legal fees, and leave a margin wide enough to sting. Every penny that studio had ever generated was now legally disconnected from Marissa. But the paper trail didn't stop there. As part of the settlement, she forfeited all future earnings tied to the brand. No merchandise, no licensing, no workshops. Anything that once bore her name now legally belonged to a closed chapter. The final divorce decree came 2 weeks later. It included a clause Carolyn insisted on. Alimony waived and voided due to substantiated financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary trust. In plain English, she would never see a dollar from me again. She signed it without protest. No courtroom, no cross-examination, no dramatic apology. Just a notary stamp and a silence I intended to preserve for the rest of my life. When the ink dried, Carolyn handed me a thin folder. "There's still time to pursue criminal charges," she said. "Forgery, tax evasion, misuse of loan funds. The IRS might press on their end regardless, but if you want to make a statement—" I shook my head before she could finish. "I'm not here for the fire," I said. "I just wanted the match out of her hand." She nodded. "You've got what you need, and what she feared you'd never figure out." That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for 5 years. Marissa had bought it during our honeymoon in Sonoma, said we'd open it on our 10-year anniversary. We never made it past year 4. I poured a single glass, toasted the quiet, and then poured the rest down the sink. A week later, I finalized a purchase that had been in the works since the 2nd month after she left. A small software firm I'd once advised during my early years in consulting. 6 full-time staff, 1 proprietary product, and just enough chaos to keep me engaged without drowning. Independent. Accountable only to myself. It felt like air after holding my breath for too long. I didn't check her social media. Carolyn said she'd deleted most of it after the audit notices went public. Retreats had been canceled. Her coaching clients asked for refunds. One even filed a complaint through the state attorney's office. But that wasn't mine to worry about anymore. The win wasn't loud. It wasn't posted or published or celebrated. It was paperwork. A series of signatures that rebuilt the line she tried to erase. A closed loop. A clean ledger. She'd said she needed to rediscover herself. All I ever needed was closure. I spent that summer rebuilding. Professionally, personally, structurally. I rewrote old code, installed new systems, hired 2 people I'd mentored early in my career. People who still believed value comes from consistency, not marketing. We launched a product in September, streamlined accounting for startups with built-in audit tracking. I didn't advertise it that way, but I knew what inspired it. My accountant texted me the week our quarterly numbers came in. "You're profitable already. That's rare. Congratulations." I just replied, "Thanks. Good foundations matter." And they did. It wasn't about the money anymore, not the loss or the recovery. It was about proving, quietly, thoroughly, that I hadn't been broken, just redirected. Marissa sent one final message the day after the business transfer cleared. A 2-line email. "I never meant for things to go this way. I hope one day you'll understand." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. It had been a year since the papers were signed and the studio sold. I had long since moved on, geographically, professionally, emotionally. My days weren't spent thinking about what happened, and I'd stopped checking for updates on Marissa's life the moment the sale cleared. But reminders have a way of showing up when you least expect them. One arrived in the form of a handwritten note addressed to my office. It came from a small business accountant named Talia, who ran workshops for first-time entrepreneurs in Ohio. She'd found a copy of a training deck, one of my earlier audit walkthroughs, that had been circulated among professional circles after the Marissa case. "I used your system audit logs to teach young owners how to spot misappropriation before it becomes theft," she wrote. "You saved someone else's partnership last month. Just thought you should know." I read the note twice, then pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, next to a photo of my team at their launch party. It wasn't pride that kept it there. It was clarity. Clarity that everything I built, everything I suffered, could serve a purpose beyond just my own closure. Marissa reached out one last time 2 weeks later. A short email, no subject line. I didn't think you'd go through with it, I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a moment, then hovered over the trash icon and clicked. No response, no drama, no curiosity. I had nothing left to prove to her. These days, I spent most of my time mentoring early-stage founders, not flashy tech startup types. Quiet operators. People with real-world products, trying to build sustainable businesses that wouldn't crumble under emotional decisions or handshake deals. I taught them the same way I built my own systems, with structure, with discipline, and with safeguards that didn't rely on optimism. I never told them my story, never opened with, "Let me tell you about what happened to me." But I always ended the same way. Systems don't betray you, people do. So build systems that can handle betrayal. Some of them understood right away, others learned later. The company I had acquired was thriving. Not unicorn-level success, just honest, consistent progress. Enough to pay well, to grow comfortably, to attract talent that didn't need hype to believe in the work. My new team knew little about Marissa, only that I took meetings on time, documented everything, and never made emotional decisions when legal ones would do. I had a standing invite to speak at 2 local accelerators. I declined most of them, preferring one-on-one mentoring or small group workshops. I wasn't interested in being a voice of vengeance or a cautionary tale. I just wanted the next version of myself, the younger ones with open hearts and business loans on the horizon, to think ahead before signing on the dotted line with someone who talked about passion but never opened a spreadsheet. Some nights, when the office was quiet and my team had gone home, I'd reread that note from Talia, not to relive what happened, but to remember why I built things the way I did. To remember that structure isn't cold, it's protective. And that, in the end, the quiet victories always outlast the loud betrayals.